Batwing number 16, written by Fabian Nicieza, art by Alan Jefferson. So, start of a new arc. We have a prostitute murdered. Her name was Sifa. We have a kid, some rich kid is arrested. His name is Ansel Marksbury, who is the son of a leading industrialist in Africa. Shortly thereafterwards, the crucial evidence that tied Ansel to the crime goes missing, and Ansel is let off free because the judge can't find any evidence against him. And then shortly thereafterwards, another girl is killed in a very similar manner. And they all know it's Ansel, they all know it's him, and they just have to hope somebody will speak up or they can find some evidence. So Kia and David are the first ones on the scene, and they're like, all right, corruption in the police department is insane. I can trust Kia, I can trust myself, so let's see if we can get anything. And they go around knocking on doors, and everyone's like, didn't see nothing, didn't hear nothing, nope, bye, slamming the door in their face. Until they get to one house where there's a little girl who's like, yeah, I heard her having an argument. And they're like, oh, well, did you see who he was having an argument with? And he's like, I don't know, it's just some white guy. Which is them being like, oh, you saw him though, like, could you point him out in a lineup? And at that point they're like, okay. Her name is Lysette, this little young girl, and they identify a picture of Ansel Marksbury. So it's like, all right, cool. So they put it in the report and they hand it off to a guy named Detective Bemba. And they know Bemba's on the payroll of the Marksburys. So at that point, they also go to the captain and they're like, Captain, we think you're okay. We're not sure, but we're going to trust you right now. And they give him the name of Lysette and say, this girl has positively identified Ansel Marksbury. So know that should be a part of the report if it isn't when Bemba gives it to you. So at that point, David's like, I'm going to go as Batwing and I'm just going to mix things up a little bit. And they go to a bar/club where the Marksburys are, son and father. And Matu's on the phone saying, like, you really shouldn't do this. This is only going to stir the pot. And he's like, yeah, that's the point, Matu. So he goes into the club, starts throwing around guys, goes up to the Marksburys and says, like, Ansel Marksbury, I know what you did, and I'm going to make sure you see the inside of a prison for it. And the dad steps up being like, that was all a misunderstanding, and we've got that settled. And he's like, I also know how you did it. I also know how you got rid of the evidence. You have corruption in police force. I'm not the police. You will deal with me. And at that point, the police show up because they've gotten calls that Batwing was just tossing around people in a club, and they pull their guns, say like, freeze, step away. And he's like, how could I freeze and step away at the same time? And he blows a hole in the roof, flies out it, and heads back to the base, the Haven, to talk to Matu. And basically they just talk like, yeah, police corruption's a thing, but you've been dealing with police corruption, you've been making it so that you make it so they can't ignore it, you make it that public. And he's like, yeah, but like, still stuff falls through the system. And Matu basically brings up the point of, hey, look, I know when you joined Batman Incorporated, you made sure to definitely never kill, but like, maybe that is the only way sometimes. Maybe that's the African way of doing things. And David pauses. He's like, I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So we see Bemba and the captain arguing. And clearly Bemba did not include in the report the part he was supposed to. So he's supposed to go out and get the witness and all that. But of course, him getting the witness's name and being on the payroll, Bemba's just going to go and kill the little girl because he's that evil. So Kia lets David know that that's going to be going on and that they have to go help the little girl as best they can. But we see that Kia is not going to the little girl. She's actually going to the captain's house. And she sees a bunch of guys with bats coming out. And they go inside and see that the captain was attacked by Bemba and a couple other corrupt cops because he's poking his nose where he shouldn't. David, he's closer to the little girl's house, and he makes his way over there, but he doesn't have his Batwing suit, so he tells Matu, like, hey, I need you to activate the remote stuff and fly my suit over to me, okay? Super important you do it literally right now. So as he arrives at the girl's house, the corrupt cops are arriving at the exact same time. David pulls his gun, they pull their guns, and it's like, we can't kill David. He's like he hasn't done anything wrong. And they're just like, he's in our way. That's as wrong as it needs to be. So they open fire on David. Kia shows up. She manages to direct their fire away for a second, just enough to distract as the Batwing suit comes down. And it's basically in drone mode with a holographic face inside the helmet. So it's just like, yep, all right, the holograph projector's working. They fire off some tasers, take out the corrupt cops, and just like, all right, they're safe for right now, but we need to help protect this girl long enough to get Ansel Marksbury inside of prison. So they take him into protective custody. She positively identifies Ansel. He goes to jail, and the corrupt cops are basically, they don't have anything against them directly. So they now have a hit on David and Kia. Like before, they just didn't like them. Now they have active reason to hate and try to get rid of them. So at that point, we see Batwing's like, yep, I did it. I managed to get Marksbury into prison without killing anybody. So yes, it's worth it. And he says how now he's going to be proactive and he's going to go after basically the entire corrupt police force. He's going to root out the corruption in there. And Matu's like, okay, yeah, good luck with that. And the final shots we have here are the father, Marksbury, on a communication call with somebody and basically saying like, Batwing and David Zavimbe are the reasons that your son is in jail. What do you want us to do about it? And he's like, get them both, kill them both. I want both those guys dead. So he's being targeted on two fronts, both David and Batwing. Oh no. I feel like I've seen this before with Bruce Wayne and Batman, but it's creative enough. It's got its own thing going on with police corruption. I like it. I think it's a solid issue. It feels pretty standalone. If it weren't for like the last like two panels, it would basically just be a thing of, okay, here's just an issue with its own little side plot, and the larger plot we're going into is Batwing tackling police corruption. And I think that would be a cool story on its own, and I hope that's more so what the focus is, because it sounds really interesting for this book, which has always had a battle between the systems of Africa versus Batwing trying to help correct them. If we do focus more on this rich guy just attacking Batwing out of revenge, I'm not going to be as excited, but it still has its own story potential as well. So we'll see which route it goes next issue. But for this one, I'm going to give this one I'll give it like a 7. I think it's good. It's not fantastic, but it's dealing more with this morality play of, you know, what do you do when the systems fail entirely, and how do you manage to push your own morals in dealing with it. So I'm interested in it. I like it, and it gets a 7.